Good morning. John Phillips here with Ben Frazier and some of our allies. Look, it was widely reported last week that Ben here was arrested. He went to a public meeting under the Sunshine Laws, went up an elevator into the meeting to try to have a conversation with our governor, the leader of this state. He repeatedly said, "We come in peace, we come in peace." And based upon the content of his message, he was arrested. There was no threats, there was no crimes, there was no intent to commit a threat or a crime. Instead of just allowing Ben to speak or even moving the meeting to a different room, they chose to single out Ben Frazier, arrest him, and take him off of his scooter, which he asked about, walk him down, throw him in the back of a police car, and try to figure out what charges to pin on him. Ultimately, they chose trespass. This was a violation under both JSO and ADA protocol of Ben's disability rights. This was, under federal and state law, a violation of Ben's First Amendment rights. What we have here isn't regulation of speech or regulation of whether somebody is credentialed or non-credentialed medium, right? That was what they said. But, you know, a couple years ago, I bought Folio. We can print our own credentials. Ben's contributed to Folio. Ben's contributed to the media for the better part of, what, 40 years? 50 years. So this wasn't about whether Ben was properly credentialed or not. And so what we have here is a governor and a governor's office that has shown repeated partisanship. And that also violates Ben's federal rights. And so, you know, we have the whole thing on video. What happened after that just amplifies how bad this was when you have the Florida GOP after this tweeting, "This isn't the first time Ben Frazier is let out of a room in handcuffs. He is a well-known activist and Democrat with a criminal record. You're attacking him immediately with this proxy presidential race." Christina Pushaw then does the same thing. Fact check. Ben Frazier's a bad guy. That if he had tried to pull this at a White House press meeting, he'd have interfered with the Secret Service. Ben was allowed into that room. That's as clear as can be. The crazy thing about this, and where you see the most hypocrisy, is this statement. 2 days later.
I'm very much in favor of letting people speak their mind however they want to do it.
Our own DeSantis saying he's in favor of letting people speak their mind however they want to do it. Is that your experience with Governor DeSantis?
Governor DeSantis does not want to hear from black community organizers and civil rights activists.
But wait, sir, hold on. Let me. If it's protecting statements like "Let's go, Brandon,"
letting people speak their mind however they want to do it.
That, sir, is rank hypocrisy in the eyes and ears of anybody who chooses to be the judge. The governor is speaking in hypocritical tone, saying that he is for people speaking of their mind. That is a lie.
Abraham Lincoln said it best: discourage litigation. That's kind of strange coming from a lawyer's mouth. Persuade your neighbors to compromise whenever you can. As a peacemaker, the lawyer has superior opportunity. To be a good man, there will still be business enough. So this is our challenge to the governor. This is our challenge to all of those involved, JSO, FDLE, the facilities where this happened, to drop this frivolous charge. Even Melissa Nelson, her letter is on this table. Even Melissa Nelson doesn't want to get involved with this. She's already sent a letter to the governor saying, "Hey, please excuse and recuse," because she wants to avoid an appearance of impropriety. So in order to prosecute this simple trespass charge, the state of Florida and the taxpayers are going to have to pay a prosecutor to come all the way to Jacksonville from some outside district. So this is our challenge, to dismiss this ticket for the governor and the governor's office, if they're truly sincere about all of the people and protecting all of the people, to sit down with Ben. If not, we are in the process of preparing a notice of intent to sue, which is required under some parts of this law, and a federal lawsuit because of the suppression of Ben's First Amendment, his ADA rights, and other violations. Look, we cannot, I just spent 3 years litigating a speech violation between Omarosa and Trump, and we won at every step, by the way. We cannot use prosecution if it's going after particular speech that politicians don't like, that government officials don't like. So let's make it clear, we've lost our way with partisan politics. Mr. Frazier's civil, criminal, and constitutional rights were violated. There will be a lawsuit. Our first hope and ambition is that Mr. Frazier can get what he wants, which is a simple meeting to talk about the particular issues of the people of Northeast Florida and the disenfranchised population. Ben?
Yes, we will be able to address some of the legal issues and aspects that John has already discussed momentarily, and we'll be able to take your questions. But first, a brief statement. I think what stands to reason is, why did I go there to begin with? What did I want to talk about? We wanted to talk with the governor face to face about the cares and concerns of black folks and other people of issues, other people of color. We wanted to talk about issues like healthcare, education, housing, economics, the day-to-day challenges facing the families of the people of Florida. The governor doesn't talk about these issues every day. In fact, he goes from whistle stop to whistle stop, campaigning using the pandemic as a vehicle for his political aspirations. In Florida, you see, we are struggling to live because the people under this administration are not the priority. He is, in fact, an enemy of the people. The only success story in the state of Florida is that of the wealthy few that gain more wealth and power at the expense of working people. Well, the rest of us, it's a story of struggle. Stevie Wonder put it another way. For many of us, we're living just enough for the city. As you may have seen at the governor's press event last week, the powerful will do almost anything. They'll go through hell and high water to keep some of us quiet about the issues that matter the most to the people. Florida is not a free state if the governor shuts down anyone who speaks out against them. Florida is not a free state if the politicians in charge are afraid to hear the voice of the people. They passed HB 1 last session. It was an assault against black organizers like me and black-led organizations, assaulting our freedom to assemble, a freedom that is foundational to the republic and to this democracy. Public expression, you see, is critical to a functioning democracy. We will not sit back in silence as this governor attempts to run roughshod over the rights of the people. Sadly, the freedom of the people does not align with this governor's plans, and he's shown a willingness to trade our freedoms for his political ambition. He should stop playing politics with the pandemic. I'm here to tell you now that nothing can stop the people from holding their political leaders accountable, no matter how hard they try. This is not a dictatorship where the authoritarian rules. This is the United States of America, and someone should remind this governor of that fact. Until the people finally come first. We will continue to march, to rally and demonstrate and to assemble and protest, and we will be heard. In America, we have a right to express ourselves and to demand that our elected officials behave like true public servants. They must work for the people, and we must hold them accountable. We'll take your questions.
So Ben, I was there as well that day, you know, and when you were downstairs, the police said, you have to go to the road. They said, this is not a public facility for you to come up. You went up, correct? I mean, and on that, I'm just being the devil's advocate here. This was a press conference. We had to get the okay to be there. Why was it okay for you to be there?
It was okay for me to be there because I'm a tax-paying American, a resident of this fine state. We have a right to be able to confront and to ask questions from our elected officials. Remember, we stood on public property, a public building, asking questions of a public official as a member of the public. Now let's get this straight. We don't have to have passes to walk around in the United States of America. This is the United States, folks. We have a right to question our elected officials. What then was preventing me from asking a question in a peaceful assembly of an elected official? Why? Because I did not have press credentials? You want press credentials? I have 50 years, 250 awards for journalistic excellence, 3 local Emmys. I've written and broadcast nationally and internationally. How much more do you want in terms of credentials?
And I'll add from a legal standpoint, whether or not this is trespass under the law, and we've got all the defenses for it. We're ready to go to court on it if that's where they want this to go. Melissa Nelson doesn't seem to want to be there. That says something. But why was Ben Frazier singled out? Why not just walk him out? Why not say, okay, you made your point, Mr. Frazier, have a good day? Why was his message singled out while other uncredentialed media, was allowed to leave freely? We think that again goes because the governor's office and how they instituted the campaign after this was over didn't like his message. Well, that, under all case law, under federal jurisprudence for hundreds of years, violates the First Amendment because you're going to the content, not regulation of the speech, to protect the integrity of a press conference. Plus, there's Florida sunshine laws, which and how this meeting was noticed, which we need to investigate to see whether they could even do that.
John, what specifically are you asking for right now, and then what steps would you take if that first request is not agreed upon?
From the criminal standpoint or citation standpoint, we are asking for dismissal of the charge. 2, there was an offer at the meeting for a scheduled meeting with the governor or the governor's office. We want to accept that. We want to take them up on that and address this and the proper procedures for disgruntled citizens to be able to address their grievances instead of wind up in handcuffs when they want to express their grievances. So those would be the 2 things. The countermeasure is litigation. It's a federal civil rights lawsuit. There are state claims we need to add is without getting into a 30-minute discussion on how messed up it is to sue the government. As you guys know, to sue under state law claims, we got to do a notice of intent to sue, which can take up to 6 months for them to say, okay, now you can sue us. We have to get permission. But the federal civil rights lawsuit could be filed imminently while we pursue the other claims.
Would this be against the governor or the governor and the state Department of Health and whatever?
Everybody in the chain, JSO violated its own protocols related to how they handled Mr. Frazier and his ADA rights. But it's certainly JSO is a potential defendant, FDLE, the facilities management, and certainly the governor's office.
But do you have an ultimatum for by when they need to respond before you end up file the charges?
We'll put that in a letter that we'll get to you guys. This is something that's, look, most of the time when I'm talking about a federal civil rights lawsuit, I have the family sitting next to me because somebody's deceased. But that doesn't, if we keep allowing rights to be stifled, if we keep allow speech to be suppressed, we have a problem. And so, I hope we can get this. When's the criminal hearings? The 22nd?
10 days from the day of that event.
Yeah. So that's kind of the hope, is to get it taken care of before that first hearing.
Listen, I think we all can back off. Sometimes you can't see the forest because of the trees. This is a simple request, a reasonable request. We want to talk with the governor about the issues at hand. Issues like housing, issues like healthcare, issues like education, issues like economics. We want to sit down and have a reasonable, straightforward, honest discussion. What does the governor have to lose by having that discussion? It appears that he is using ad hominem and mudslinging to back away from having this honest, straightforward conversation. They have pulled out the big guns. The Republican State Party has made comments. The RNC, a national Republican Party, is speaking on the issue of one civil rights activist in Jacksonville, Florida. What do they have to fear? People of character do the right thing even when no one else does, not because they think it will change the world, but because they refuse to be changed by the world. Have I made mistakes? Why, of course. I made mistakes in my past that people may not forgive me. God has. Most of us have made mistakes, and we're given a second chance. That second chance is called tomorrow. I am suggesting that we stay on message and stay on target and stay on principles, and in the words of the First Lady, Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. I am not going to involve myself in the mudslinging with this governor. I'm going to stay on message and keep the principles at hand. Let's sit down, have an honest, straightforward conversation about issues concerning most Floridians, and especially those affecting Black people and people of color.
Look, right behind you guys, there's a pen that was used to sign the Civil Rights Act. It was presented to George Meany, who has now family ties in Jacksonville. Dr. King's also in that photo. It used to take a lot of contention to come together to find compromise. Certainly, Dr. King's found himself in a prison falsely for some of that. We don't do that anymore. We have our federal officials, our state officials, hop on Twitter and immediately start a campaign talking about whether Mr. Frazier's ever been arrested, as if there was a crime that he was contemplating. It should incense the public whether you're right or left. And it's just got to stop. And if lawsuits need to be filed, every time we see suppression of speech, then if that's the only way we're going to have progress, then so be it.
Disrespect and deflection is not the way for this governor to go. I'm simply suggesting we stay on target with the message. Let's address the issues. I am concerned about the welfare of all Floridians, regardless of the color of their skins. I am concerned with those issues. I think that the governor has done an absolutely shoddy job of handling the pandemic. I think he's been asleep at the wheel and in certain respects, missing in action. I think he's done an absolutely lousy job of managing the pandemic, and those are issues that I want to discuss with him. I don't think he wants to discuss those issues with anyone, much less me.
Are there any statistics available for other people that may have been removed from DeSantis events over the last couple of years? And if it comes down to a lawsuit, would you be open to having other people who've been arrested in similar circumstances join in?
We'd be happy to have a class action type litigation for this. Look, it's incremental injustice, and where we've seen the precedent of weaponized litigation is just outrageous. Fortunately for attorneys like me, you start filing federal lawsuits, there's attorney's fees provisions. I don't really want taxpayers to be paying me. I really just want the rights to be restored and everybody be treated fairly. But when I saw this last Monday, and Ben and I have worked together in the law office and Folio and at public events, I was just like, you've got to be kidding me this is where we're headed. Any other?
Said that you had been arrested in the past and let out in handcuffs for other events. Is that true?
No, I've not been let out in handcuffs in other events. No. We have had civil disobedience, obviously, at City Hall, at city council meetings, but no one has ever arrested me.
I think they referred to something with the Board of Education. That's not true.
That's not true. Who said that?
Pardon?
Who?
I was just reading from the tweets. That they said this isn't the first time he was let out in handcuffs. And trying to stand in the way of residents. Well, that's what they're basically saying in their tweets.
Well, what we understand, and any good news reporter will tell you, that they're slinging mud, Jim. And I'm simply saying they need to kind of class up their act, okay? Let's stay on the target with regards to the principles and the issues. I'm not slinging mud at this governor personally. I'm talking about the issues. And I want the governor's office and his proxies to stay on target and address the issues. That's where I am, period. I am concerned about a governor who is utilizing dictatorial means to administer the state of Florida. We're not going to put up with it. He's not going to stop anybody from exercising their First Amendment rights because he doesn't like what it is they're saying. We will continue to march and protest, and of course, we are suing him in court, in federal court on that matter. But in addition to that, we got to stay true to the concerns and challenges of everyday Floridians. We've got real issues to deal with. And here he is walking around slinging mud against one black civil rights activist in Jacksonville, Florida. Somebody needs to tell him to get focused.
Any other questions? Thank you all for your time today. It means a lot.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.